Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining me this morning on our Prayer with Friday. And with that, let's get into honoring God with our body. So, God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I would think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect our eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over our mouths. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect our reproductive organs and help us to honor you, God, with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if this is the first time you are joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, that is how we start out the day, because we definitely have a lot to pray for. We have a lot of subject matter to get into. So let us start with, where's my, sorry, y'all. Just a second. I was like, I thought I had everything queued up. I guess I needed to move some things around. There we go. There we go. Trending topics on X. So let's get to it. Okay. So this is the same trending topic from yesterday. The Senate did confirm Erica Schwartz as CDC director. Good morning, Cajun lady. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Some are seeing it as good. Some are seeing it as bad. As she stated, she was like, I'm totally comfortable with mRNA. And everybody's like, no, not doing that again. So I think a few people were probably a little bit triggered by that. But we'll see. We'll see. RFK, I'm just saying, I hope she's a good one. I really do. Dearborn RBN March draws sharp online reactions. Now, this is something I showed you guys last week, and it was like the large processions in Dearborn, Michigan. You would have thought it was a completely different country. It was roughly 45,000 people. Yeah, I don't think they were all caught on in that drone footage, but the thousands of people that you did see marching, they did not look like they were here from America. There were no American flags. This was all about, I guess, their heritage and what they have been, celebrating on American soil. I don't know. How would that go in another country? Could we just, do random marches for Martin Luther King and protesting stuff over there as we did? Oh, no, we can't do that because they don't have freedom of speech over there. That's right. That's right. So Scott Pressler's team uncovers non-citizen matches on Pennsylvania voter rolls. I'm really not shocked about this, but let's just check out what happened with Scott Pressler really quick. I'm sure there's a video here, and here he is. Hold on one moment.
Of Homeland Security, according to the DHS review of state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC fake news.
Yeah, and the reason why, and people may make excuses for California. I'm not making excuses for them, but I'm just
Bit of
going
Homeland
to
Security.
let you in on a little secret with California. Because people can actually petition, right? Something happened with my vote or this, that, and the other. They give so many days to actually go back and review that information. That's why it takes so long for their voting to be completed, because they're not just saying, okay, here's the tallies, here's the winner. They're literally going through and in real time doing the audits as they're doing the counting. So a lot of states will just do the counting, and then if there are issues after the fact, then they'll go back, right, and do any audits. If somebody petitions for a recount or anything like that, they'll do that after the fact. So it's one of those, I don't want to say it's semantics, but California, you need to do better. You do. And especially for those states that refuse to turn over their voter rolls, I think that is really weird, because that's very telling that you just don't want to do what's right. Because if you were doing what's right, why would you care? Why would you care if anybody audited your records? Everything should be clean, right? You shouldn't care, right? So why are you pushing back so hard? I'm just saying. Just okay. Now let's get into some quick, just some topics on all sides. And now there are the water systems in 12 states targeted in a cyber attack. Now, what a lot of people may not understand is that our water, it does run on there's a it takes electricity to make it work, if that makes any sense. So your water just doesn't automatically just flow to your house. It actually requires electricity with pumps to get it to your house and back to the treatment center and all these ebbs and flows. So for a cyber attack to go in and actually manipulate what's going on with the software that keeps this management system going, that's very, very crazy and scary. So it says water systems in at least 12 states were targeted in cyber attacks last week that U.S. officials suspect may be linked to Iran-backed hackers. And targeted states, and just the few listed here, are Michigan and Georgia. And I definitely live here in the state of Georgia. Where I live hasn't been affected to my knowledge, but that's really, really crazy what's going on there. There was a report Trump's deportation efforts could cost taxpayers an average of $2,358. Yeah, I'm sure it's all costing us, whether people are here, whether people are leaving. I mean, they're offering money to leave, so I don't understand that. That's just weird. Like, where'd you think the money was going to come from? Really? It just comes from the air. Y'all are just weird. Just a mess. Okay, there was one other thing I wanted to make sure that I pull up. Thank you guys again for joining me this morning. And don't worry, this is par for the course. If this is the first time you guys are joining us, there are some times when it's just me. Okay, I'm doing everything here. But I wanted to wanted you guys to check out this video. So apparently, Donald Trump has done another executive order regarding this whole birthright citizenship debacle. And I do call it a debacle because he's been, really outspoken about the birth tourism. And so I wanted to check this out.
Our President Trump is speaking now in the Oval Office at an executive order signing. Let's listen in.
Do you have anything to say about that?
Sir, I think you need to put this in the context of everything else that's happening. Manufacturing productivity is the highest it's been in years. We haven't seen any growth like this for forever. Under President Biden, the last part of his presidency, he lost 220,000 manufacturing jobs. The president has stabilized this. Now the manufacturing jobs are going up. So all of these indicators on manufacturing are happening, and it's because of tariffs, it's because of trade actions, it's because of the investment credits you've given people, the tax credits, everything you're doing, the energy policy, all of it is bringing manufacturing back here, protecting American workers and American jobs.
Well, tariffs are bringing us hundreds of billions of dollars worth of dollars. I mean, just money, the money that we've never seen anything like it, with no inflation, by the way. Everyone said, oh, there'll be inflation. We have very low inflation. We brought inflation way down. I inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but I say the history of our country, and from the Biden administration, and we're bringing it way down. So the numbers that, I mean, beyond the money being brought in, the number of factories being built in our country is more now than we have ever seen before. There's never been anything like it. And you're going to see the results. And you're seeing the results already in construction jobs because they're being built all over the country. But in another year, as they start to open, there's never been, we call it the golden age of America, and that's what it is. Now, if we could talk, Steve, maybe you could discuss what we're dealing with on birthright citizenship. We had a very unfortunate decision in the Supreme Court concerning birthright. It was close, but a very, very unfortunate decision. So we're making adjustments because it's very unfair. This was done for a different reason. This was done right after the Civil War. This was for the babies of slaves. And what's happening now, people are building businesses around it. From wealthy people are building businesses around birthright citizenship. That's not the way it's supposed to work. It's a disgrace. They're buying their way in, and we're not going to let it happen. So, Steve, if you will, please.
Yes, so today the president signed these two executive orders here relating to birthright citizenship and birth tourism. As the president mentioned, the 14th Amendment was passed exclusively in the aftermath of the Civil War so to ensure that the children of slaves would be citizens. It had no other meaning and purpose outside of that. And that's been clear, obviously, since the day that it was passed. You can go back and you can read the congressional debates. This is not something that's even seriously contested by anybody. The president is using his authority as commander-in-chief to sign first an executive order using the new ruling the Supreme Court issued to expand the definitions of people who are ineligible for birthright citizenship. That includes, for example, alien enemies of the United States, members of foreign terrorist organizations, and large categories of people who lobby and act on behalf of foreign governments. And so with taking this action, it ensures that large numbers of people who wrongly would be getting birthright citizenship will no longer be eligible for those benefits. The second action that he's taking, which is especially historic, is for the first time ever in American history to ban birth tourism. So I want you to really let that sink in. This has been something that people have talked about not only for years, but for decades. The idea that people come here pretending to be a tourist, pretending to be a visitor, saying they want to go to Disneyland, they want to go visit a monument or go to a national park, but the real reason they're here is to have a child, to make that child an automatic citizen, leave our country, and then have a U.S. citizen child. It gives them access under this broken system to welfare benefits, ultimately to the voting booth, and all the other rights and privileges that belong solely to Americans. So that practice of birth tourism is, as of the signing of this order, hereby banned. And with that,
Okay, now I'm going to leave the rest. You guys can watch the rest of the video because I only have so much time. Okay, so I looked all of this up because, of course, you guys know I did. Because I was like, what? Woke up to it this morning. I was like, oh my. So let's get into it. Okay, so the question I had is, like I said, can you please outline the executive order by President Trump to end birth tourism? All right. Now, and I said, also, can you please outline Immigration Section 215? Because that is what they're hanging their hat on. Now, you know there's going to be lawsuits behind this, which I would find fascinating because people they act like this doesn't exist. What are you talking about? So it's going to be interesting. Anyway, so it says yes, on August 6th, President Trump signed 2 related executive orders in response to the Supreme Court's June 30th decision, right? Trump versus Barbara. One is specifically titled Ending Birth Tourism. Okay, so it's basically outlining the order states U.S. citizenship is not a commodity to be obtained by exploiting temporary non-immigrant visas. It criticizes birth tourism operators who have deceptive advertising and coaching to help foreign nationals enter on non-immigrant visas, primarily to give birth on U.S. soil, securing citizenship for the child and potential future benefits. It argues this undermines the integrity of visa categories, diverts enforcement resources, and erodes public confidence in immigration law. My biggest question is this going to be retroactive? Are you going to go all the way back to when people started really doing this? And we do have an approximate date, and we'll get into that in just a second. So the key authority of delegation, the president delegates authority under Section 215A of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is Title 8 USC Section 1185A, to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security. This allows them to issue or adopt rules, policies, and operational guidance to implement the order, which means he's delegated that to them so they can enforce the law. Basically, they can be like, nope, not today. So there's a process when people apply for their visas. It has to be examined, it has to be vetted, then it has to be approved so they can deny all of this. And it's going to probably have more scrutinizing questions. I would say, I don't want people peeing in a cup. I want you to have to walk through a scan. I want you to have to walk through a scan so we can see if there's something else hidden literally within your body. Because my whole thing is, if you were to violate this law, you should be immediately removed from the country and your child's not a valid citizen, period. That whole just soil argument doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. Because you came here with intent that was illegal. And that's always been illegal, but it's very crazy how they just keep trying to force an invasion on us using our laws. It's really disgusting. So a companion order continuing to protect the meaning and value of American citizenship. Okay. It directs agencies not to issue or accept citizenship documents for certain categories of children born in the U.S. when neither parent is a citizen. This includes cases involving commercial transactions to obtain birthright citizenship, explicitly covering birth tourism arrangements and certain surrogacy uses. Children of certain foreign government employees, alien enemies, right, members of designated terrorist organization, and births in certain U.S. territories where citizenship is not conferred by statute. I absolutely love it. Keep it going on repeat. Now, I will have this link for you guys to really go over. So I ask for some of these operators. So here are some of the operating websites. Yes, there are websites, by the way, that promote this stuff. Okay. There's one, Have My Baby in Miami. Okay. It's Florida based. It offers concierge maternity packages, housing, airport transfers, hospital coordination, document guidance. It has claimed involvement in large numbers of international births and markets heavily to Brazilian and other Latin American clients. There's Doctores Para Ti, markets childbirth packages exclusively for international patients, post using birth tourism. This is a whole hashtag, right? And offer pricing for C-section and vaginal births, plus logistics and legal support. And that's in the Texas area. All right. And there's another one in El Paso, Texas. So there's as you can see, there's a lot of these places. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very crazy. And I say, can those operating facilities be prosecuted? Yes, they can be, because what they're doing is completely illegal. So operators of birth tourism facilities, maternity houses, and related concierge services can be prosecuted under U.S. federal law when their activities involve criminal conduct, most commonly visa fraud, right? Conspiracy, money laundering, and related offenses. Yeah, so a lot of these places that are literally online right now, let's just look up one in real time. Let's see. Let's look up the first one and see what comes up, because it didn't give me the links. Sometimes I'll get the links. Yeah. Have my baby in Miami. That's a PDF. Oh, that's house.gov. Looking for it. And my baby in Miami. They got a whole YouTube channel. What? Yeah, y'all are seeing this. Y'all are seeing this. That is insane to me. This is really good. But this is happening. This is happening. That's bold. Okay. To me. That is so bold. It's like, yep, we're gonna come and we're just gonna have our baby and we're just gonna do what we want. What? No, you're not. You're gonna stop invading our country. Have my baby in Miami. Like I said, they have a whole dedicated website to this. What? And they've got thousands of subscribers. You can subscribe. I don't know if there's any videos. There's no videos, but you can subscribe. That's kind of weird. Okay, there we go. There's the videos. Okay. So here's a video. Let's see what it's got to say.
Hijo. Y el programa Tener mi bebé en Miami volverá.
Okay, it's not in English, but yeah, these are in a foreign tongue, but promoting, as you can see, for people to come here and just have a baby on the American taxpayer dime. I'm glad they can be prosecuted, and I hope that they are. But again, I will have this link. And the other thing I wanted to know is, I said, can you list the origin dates of commercial birth tourism and which countries primarily took advantage of this practice? Because at this point, it's more than a scam. This is organized crime. Okay, a scam is something that, might last and they'll find it. No, this is organized crime, and it's been going on for a long time. So commercial birth tourism, right? Visa assistance and marketing specifically for the purpose of obtaining U.S. citizenship for a newborn. That is not only fraud, it's violation of federal law, because that is not why the 14th Amendment was put in place, but they're taking advantage of it because of this whole Kim Wong-Ark thing, which was illegal. And I'll get into that in just a second. My goodness. But this started in the 1960s. So let's not be fooled and deceived. Oh, this was just happening 10 years ago. No, it's been happening since the 60s. Okay, so some California maternity hotel operators have claimed commercialized operations catering to Koreans existed as early as the 1960s, with rumors of similar services for Turks on the East Coast. These claims are not extensively documented in official records, but this was approximately the time that it started happening. In the 70s and 90s, it was informal to small scale, right? Practices among ethnic Chinese. Then the late 1990s to the early 2000s was more structured. Late 2000s to early 2010, it was a rise of the commercial industry. That's when they just started getting websites and just putting it out there boldly. You see, they got a YouTube channel on it. Just come over here and handle this, right? So it says here are the primary countries. You've got China, Russia, Brazil, okay? And so these are the countries primarily taking advantage of this. And I know a lot of people go, okay, why are you bringing this up? Because not only is it important, this is scary. And the other part that I wanted to bring up was the 14th Amendment and the debates that happened. And so here's two debates that I wanted to show you guys. So here's the first one. And here's part of the debate. It says, is by virtue natural law and natural law a citizen of the United States? I was just reading that last paragraph. It says, this will not, of course, include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, comma. Do you see the comma? So that means it's isolating who should and should not be citizens here, right? So you got foreigners, comma, aliens, comma, who belong to the families of ambassadors or foreign ministers accredited to the government of the United States, but will include every other class of persons. It settles the great question of citizenship and removes all doubt as to what persons are or are not citizens of the United States. This has long been a great, I'm trying to remember how to pronounce this word, disteritum in the jurisprudence and legislation of this country. So it's not supposed to include persons who are foreigners. And see, what they try to tie it to is they go, foreigners, aliens who belong to families of ambassadors. It's more, they are foreigners, comma. You want to say who belong to the families of ambassadors. Well, who's an ambassador? They are not eligible. But foreigners are not eligible. Aliens are not eligible. So it is not a just soil situation. And that's what the Supreme Court said. They said it's just soil. If you land on the soil and you have your kid here, you win. You won the lottery. Huh? That means that this would have been happening on a mass scale back after the Civil War when the 14th Amendment was put in place. But now I wanted to also share with you guys something else that I found. And this is about the Speaker of the House. And I know you guys are going to have a hard time seeing this. I'm going to try to make it bigger because I'm having a hard time reading it too. Let me move over here. Oops, there we go. Sorry. Oh no. Picking up the wrong parts of my screen. There we go. So it says Speaker of the House. He was Lieutenant Governor and President of the Senate. And this was Aycock. Aycock? I think that's how it's pronounced. It says the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. The purported 14th Amendment to the United States is and should be held to the effective, invalid, null, void, and unconstitutional for the following reasons. The joint resolution proposing said amendment was not submitted to or adopted by a constitutional Congress. Article 1, Section 3, and Article 5 of the Constitution. Move this up a little bit. Sorry, guys. Okay. It says the joint resolution was not submitted to the president for his approval, Article 1, Section 7. The proposed 14th Amendment was rejected by more than 1/4 of all of the states then in the Union, and it was never ratified by 3/4 of all the states in the Union, Article 5. The unconstitutional Congress. The U.S. Constitution provides, Article 1, Section 3, the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state. Article 5 provides no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. The fact that 23 senators had been unlawfully excluded. Let me move this up a little bit so I don't lose my place. Don't move anymore. From the United States Senate in order to secure a 2/3 vote for adoption of the joint resolution proposing the 14th Amendment is shown by resolutions. Okay. Yeah. So there's that too. Now, a lot of people, they're probably going to sit here and panic and, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Yeah, there were some things that happened, but that was that person's opinion in the debate. So is the 14th Amendment unconstitutional? In my opinion, yeah. And I know everybody's sitting there like, what are you talking about? The reason why I say this is because in the Declaration of Independence and in our wonderful Constitution, we do have under the First Amendment where it says all men are created equal. If all men are created equal, why in the world would you need an amendment securing their citizenship in this country? You shouldn't. It's very simple. It's very simple. The emancipated slaves were freed. The reason why we even have the 14th Amendment is because of a case called Dred Scott, where a Black man, he was like, I should be recognized as this country. I'm free, right? And the courts were like, nope, you need legislation. Huh? That's how we got here. And now we have this mess. So the question is, are we going to stand up and clean it up? Or are we going to continue to waddle in the mess? Because the longer we waddle in the mess, it just gets worse and worse. So it's time for people to really just start standing up and telling the truth on some things. Truthfully. I mean, let's just have that honest conversation. Let's just rip that Band-Aid off. If we are all created equal, we are. Now, what the 14th Amendment should protect us from is an invasion, and that is what we're going through now, where people can just come here illegally, step foot on the soil and say, oh, my kid's a U.S. citizen, and I get all the benefits. No, that is not why the 14th Amendment was written. It was written so myself, my children, and those before me from an emancipated slave who was my third great grandmother on my mother's side, and I also have the plantation on my father's side. Those emancipated slaves, right? It was written for their descendants. That's why it says born or naturalized. If it was just born, the word naturalized wouldn't even need to be a part of the 14th Amendment. That's the litness. The born refers to those who are born in descendant order, of which I am one. Because see, without those words, I'm not a citizen of this country. I was born here on the soil with no rights. So it either is what it is or it isn't. And yes, the Supreme Court in Kim Wong-Ark case got it wrong because his parents were of Chinese descent. They couldn't apply for citizenship. They were allowed to be over here illegally. They weren't naturalized citizens because they couldn't get naturalization. So he's born here on the soil. And they're like, well, he falls under the 14th Amendment. No, he doesn't, because he's not a descendant. It doesn't apply to him. And it doesn't apply to anybody else who sets foot on the soil. It doesn't. That is the litmus. That is the line drawn. Now, had his parents been naturalized, he'd be fine. We wouldn't even be here. There wouldn't even need to be a case. But because at that time, Chinese nationals were not allowed to even apply for citizenship. And you ask, well, how was he able to stay his parents able to stay in San Francisco? Because they allowed it. They allowed them to stay here. And they protected them and they sheltered them. And it wasn't violation of federal law, in my opinion. They completely violated immigration law. They all should have been deported. the minute that this even came into question. And the only reason it came into question is because he left the country, he came back, and people were, messing with him about his citizenship, because it was like, yeah, you're not a citizen here. So he had to fight for it, but he ended up eventually going back to China because he was coming up against constant scrutiny even after the case, because he was never a citizen here. We've got to clean up. It's almost like cleaning up the timeline. Now, if we were to clean up the timeline, we wouldn't have to worry about people thinking they have the right to come here and abuse our laws in this country. We either are a country of laws or we're not. And we really have to get back to being a country of laws. So with that, let's get into our prayer for the weekend. God, thank you so much for this day. We want to just thank you. And we're just so grateful for everything that you're doing for us, God. We know that our country is in just such upheaval, God. And there is the good and the bad, Father. But we're praying as we go into the weekend that you protect those that are traveling. Please protect those that are keeping our borders and keeping us safe in different parts of the world, God. We're definitely praying for those soldiers that are in Iran right now, God. Just please keep them safe and bring them home safely, God. Also, we're definitely praying for this whole, I should say, it's not necessarily an argument, but the debate regarding birthright citizenship, God. And I definitely pray that it gets sorted out and that we get back to really following our laws, being a nation of laws, and upholding those laws and requiring other people to follow the laws. God, we know that there are times when things need to happen so we can see exposure. Because if we don't see it, we won't know what's happening. We really won't know how to deal with anything moving forward. We're praying for healing for those who are hospitalized. I know I have relatives that are in the hospital that are battling with health issues right now. We're praying for their healing. We're praying for the families of a recent prior mayor here in my city who recently passed away. We're praying for comfort and healing for that family and just the young people, some that unfortunately lost their lives in the city I live in, and some that are still fighting for their lives. God, we're just praying for all of those individuals. And we also are just thanking you, God, and we're so grateful to be in a country that is free. It's not perfect, God, but we are free here. And I pray that we don't take advantage of that freedom, but with every breath in our body, God, we fight to maintain that freedom and uphold you, God, and just live by the right standards, Father, so that we set a good example for others. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, everything you've done, and everything that you are going to do. And it's in Jesus, Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. So thank you guys so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News for this Prayer with Friday. We will be back on Monday. So again, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.